My dad was, my hero, and he, taught me every skill he could. But he also taught me that, hey, we're not going to ask anyone to help us with this concrete. You and I are going to do it. That's wow. It's okay. And so I think when we butt heads and, he was dumping gasoline on my fire basically to say, your own father's hoping you fail. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to see you succeed right away. As sad as that sounds, but
what is up, beautiful people? Welcome to Scorch the Fears. I've got Mr. Marc Kuhn. Is that how you say your last name? Is it Kuhn? I should have
yeah,
asked
you got it, man. Yep.
Okay,
You got
Marc Kuhn. He is a real estate developer. I want to hear his story. I want to know if the title is right or if my assistant kind of screwed that up. I'm curious if you actually, I don't know if it was really $1 per hour to 25 million per year. I'm curious if that salary is a little bit wrong, since that seems a little bit below minimum wage. But
Yeah.
we shall see. He's great. I've been following him on Instagram for a while, so I sent him a DM. He was gracious enough to come on, and yeah, I thank you so much for being here. If you're on Instagram, come over to YouTube. That's where you're actually able to hear Marc. That's where the cool stuff is happening. So yeah, Marc, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Dude, thank you so much. I always take these in, and it's always good to connect with entrepreneurs and see if we can drop some information and help someone today. I think that's the biggest goal.
Let's do it. So real quick, just for my audience that doesn't know you, just quickly do just an overview of what you do in real estate, what you've done, kind of the businesses you run. Just a real quick overview of what your business resume is, if you will.
So not the story, just the business resume. Is that what you're?
Yeah, just a quick overview of I'm developing here, I'm doing
Yeah.
this in this market, just
Yeah.
that. And we'll get into the story afterwards.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So, basically what I do now is, I do value add apartments. So I have about 150 units myself that they're class C, B, and A. So just kind of a mix. And then I also develop and build self storage. I term them luxury storage. So I've been scaling this model and in the Midwest area, and then trying to get up to about 30, 40, 50 sites before we, either exit to a REIT or a fund. So that's something that I'm executing right now. And yeah, I'm also a contractor at heart. So that's been the long story of maybe the little intro and how the dollar per hour started. And yeah, I do. Yeah, most of my day now is taken up though as a real estate developer and a content creator for educating people in real estate, because I have a theme called Unfollow the Herd. And I believe that, a 401k isn't a full retirement plan, that you need, to not, I don't even want to say diversify, but get into an area of real estate investing that can really create a legacy for, it can do some damage on your family tree and do something a little different, even if your family's always just done the conventional things. So I try to educate more and more on that each and every day.
I love it. I love it so much. So this is the first question. I already told you the question, but this is the first question I always ask everyone at the beginning of this podcast is, what were the fears that you were dealing with when you started in real estate investing? I mean, even being a contractor, even just if you consider contracting your first business, starting being a contractor, what were the fears you were dealing with and how'd you overcome them, especially at the beginning? Because that's the whole point of this podcast is you're newer, you've got fears. How do we overcome them? So what were yours and how did you overcome them when you started in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, man, great question. And for any entrepreneur out there, it's really, everyone says the jump from W-2 to business ownership. Well, for me, it was a little different. I actually got fired from my last W-2 job 13 years ago. And, I had a new mortgage, and, desperate times get you to think a little differently. You're just a little hungrier. You have to make a new mortgage. I had a new fiance. I had things to provide for. So I felt that responsibility. And growing up, obviously, with the dollar per hour, I knew construction. I grew up with my dad, and my parents were divorced, and basically I started off $1 an hour working for my dad beside him. And so I knew the construction industry is what I'm trying to get at. And so this is 2010. So it wasn't, I'm in North Dakota. So we had oil, but the construction was booming and needed more people in it. And because the oil fields were taking up so much of the workers, that there was an opportunity for me there. So I didn't plan on, I did 4 years of college, and my dad always told me, hey, you go to college so you don't have to be doing construction the rest of your life. Lo and behold, that's where I ended up. When I got fired from my W-2 job, I didn't even really know that I was an entrepreneur. And I don't think you know that until you start to, see yourself coming up with your own ideas and your own things. And then, always the hardest part though is pulling the trigger on that. And I felt, I was 21 at this point, 22. And, I didn't have kids, and I didn't have, it seems like the longer you go on, the harder it gets, right? You got a family to provide for, or you got responsibilities to do. If you lose your job today and you're, say I'm 35 years old today, well, it's very, you have a lifestyle that you live, and no one wants to go below their lifestyle. And, people elevate that. You got private high school, private schools, and you got all these different things. It just keeps elevating the cost of living, keeping you stuck at a W-2 job. But, for me, it went right to zero. It happened to me fortunately early. So that helped. And that's why I try to educate a lot in the real estate investing world. Start early, start with a house hack, do the BRRRR method, do, just some of these simple strategies that you don't need to go buy 150 units your first deal, or, figure out anything sophisticated. You can literally just buy a new house every year and just keep renting the old one, and then go buy a new one. They'll let you do that. The mortgage companies will. So keep things very simple, but with real estate, you can do it on the side. You don't have to have it as a full-time gig, but
Right.
it gives you the opportunity to be a property manager. It gives you an opportunity to learn the real estate game very early, because I feel like the earlier you can do it, I know you won't have the credit worthiness from the banks. A time like right now is where you can get the seller carries, and you got 10,000 baby boomers retiring each day. That's where that's what I would tell a young person right now starting out, if they're willing to get into real estate, and just go all in. These are the hard times right now where things don't pencil, but if you can get them to break even, I promise you, in 2, 3, 4 years, the debt market will come down. It's going to have to, or it's going to crush everybody, and you will capitalize on that. So that's some of the things.
I 100% agree. I mean, I'm thinking about getting a deal right now that would be negative cash flow, but it's just from the depreciation, because you don't know much about me, but my business is
Yeah.
wholesaling, and then
Okay.
just owning a few rentals can make me just even having one or two, and then cost segregationing it, which we
Yeah.
can get into the technical stuff too. But I've even been thinking about, man, even if this negatively cash flowed, yeah, it'll cost me maybe 6K a year or something like that, but it's
Yep.
gonna save me in taxes 20K a year.
Yep.
So real estate investing is crazy. I 100% agree with the starting early. So you started with helping your dad out, working in your dad's construction company. You went to college. Did you get fired from your W-2, or did you quit your W-2? Did you say fired?
Yeah, I got fired. I always say fired, and yeah, it was a little maybe mutual, but
How did that feel? Because I think people are bittersweet. I didn't even have a job when I came in. I finished college, went into the Peace Corps, and then didn't have a job and was completely lost, and was all right. Let's just do this real estate investing thing. But I feel, at least for me, I would be, wow, this was the best thing ever for my business. How do you feel about getting fired?
you know what? Yeah, when it happened, and I walked out, I remember my wife she was home, or no, she was at work, and I called her and I said, hey, I lost my job, and I no longer work there. And she's, what do you mean? We just got literally, I was going to college working full time, and we just got engaged, and we were actually bought a house together, because at that point I think the government was writing you an $8,000 check for a first home buyer. So I took advantage of that. And I said, it's 2010. It was right after the financial crisis. So, there was a lot of fear in the markets. No housing was moving. And I just, and we're living together. We're a good Catholic family, so we shouldn't have been living together, but we got engaged.
Right.
So anyway, I was just, well, what do you mean you got fired? It's, well, what are you gonna do? And I didn't know. I really didn't know. Went back and I just thought about it, and I visited with my dad, which I butt heads with, and we parted ways, right? I worked for him since I was 6 years old, and I was sitting here at 21 years old, and I just, what do I want to do? And then I always loved doing construction. That's what I know the best. I can do it efficiently. I'm very good at it. And her dad owns some company, and he's like, hey, I got a employee that needs a job done. And started with a fart fan. That was my very first job as an entrepreneur. I'm a concrete guy, so for installing a fart fan as your very first job, that's not how I pictured it going. But hey, I
Funny.
did the job. It kept me going for a few more days, and then I kept finding little jobs, and it escalated.
I love
So
it.
just a lot of ambition, a lot of urgency.
And then did you start with construction? Did you start your own construction company to start out?
Yeah, well, I did kind of unintentionally. I just thought, hey, get me through the summer, and you know what, we'll see what happens when the time comes, right? I didn't know. It was just a temporary plan that I can make some money, I'll make the mortgage, and I'll look for something when the time comes. So it was very unintentional.
Gotcha. I'm curious. So when did you, because having a construction company is very different than being a real estate investor, right? I feel people who have construction companies, they don't actually own any real estate. I mean, it's a
No.
completely different thing, obviously, right? My mentor, Pace Morby, his first business was a construction company, and
Yeah.
he told me, my God, it is so much better being a real estate investor versus the guy doing the rehab instead of being the guy doing the rehab, being the guy who owns the project and just manages the people who literally is in there with a hammer, right?
Yeah.
So how did your mindset start shifting away from just being a contractor, doing construction jobs to, okay, let's actually start owning some of the real estate. Let's start doing some of that.
So, as a contractor, and like I said, things escalated. I added one, two, three employees every year. And suddenly I was 2016, 2017. I really, I, I was running, I didn't really know how to run a business. My dad never taught me he never taught me business. He taught me how to work hard. He taught me everything I needed to know skills wise, but he never taught me business. So what ended up happening in 2016, 17, I got 15 employees staring at me. And I said I was a concrete guy, so the two monsters and six coffees a day wasn't helping my health, and I just wasn't taking care of myself. So end of the day, I ended up actually in the hospital with a panic attack.
Hmm.
I remember my wife calling me, she's like, baby, the sheets they're yellow. And and I just wasn't
Right.
sleeping. I'd have night sweats. I mean, basically felt I was swallowing a sword all night, just kind of because the anxiety that literally my body was going through. And I didn't really know what was going on. I was, wow, is this what success looks like? And and because I thought I was doing well. I financially was stable and had all this employees, and just realized I wasn't running a business. It was just a business running me to my
So
grave,
what do
basically.
you what do you mean by that? Because that's a very interesting thing that you said. Because the first thought I had, and the first thought that probably a lot of people had who are listening to this was, oh, he must have not been doing financially well. He was so anxious. What were you super anxious about in the business? Like what parts were actually making you insanely anxious?
Great question. So if I were to put, concrete work is, I mean, I remember laying in bed, literally my head's on the pillow. I'm thinking all night, I'm just thinking about the morning. I'm always thinking about ahead of the curve, and I'm walking myself through my morning. This concrete truck comes at 5 a.m. I just always kept living not in the present, but always in the future. And it created a lot of anxiety. But I would literally imagine taking the shovels out, taking the buckets out, doing all this stuff, unhooking the trailer. Who lays in bed thinking about things like these? And the anxiety just of, I'm going to have 40 phone calls at 6 a.m. just because all the employees and the batch plants and, all this just business stuff for what you need to do the concrete work. I just remember it was just eating at me. I don't, it happened over time, but I started not sleeping, and it wasn't I was financially okay. I was making good money, but I was overworking myself to the point where all I thought about it was work. I mean, my wife would talk to me and I wasn't even coherent on what was going on. I was just thinking about the next job, the next job, the next job. So I kind of let it consume me, because in the W-2 world, you live hour by hour and you make it through a day and you move on. Well, when you're as a wholesaler, to your story, or a contractor, we make money by doing jobs or doing deals quickly, right? Quick
Right.
money. And I got so consumed in it. I wanted to make so much, I was hoping to make so much money that I just literally would never stop working. I just was working myself to a grave, and then adding more people, and then not delegating any tasks, just doing everything myself too. So I was my own biggest problem, is what I figured out.
That makes sense to me. I mean, yeah, I got lucky in the sense that I had mentors from the beginning who told me, "Hey, delegate stuff, get that done," right? Did it sounds like you didn't have any mentors yet.
Yeah, no, that's something I super regret from 2010 to 2017 and 2016. I don't know if I was egotistical and I didn't want anyone's help and I just wanted to dominate everybody. But it was, now that I look back, that's probably what I regret the most in my entire career, just because in 2017, that's exact time I had to get curious about, how do I make the future better? Why do I, how do I get out of this anxiety pool, and how do I get a business to operate without me? And, I just remember getting curious about that. How is other people doing this? I just never asked for help. I just was going to do it myself, and be stubborn and
Where do
egotistical.
you think that comes from? Because I definitely had that for a while too. I had an idea of that for a little bit. I'm lucky that I got over it a little quicker than you, but I definitely at the beginning was no, I got to pull myself up from my own bootstraps. I don't want anybody's help whatsoever.
Yeah.
Where do you feel that idea came from? I'm curious if that's a thing that we're taught as kids, or because I think I've seen that with other people too about not asking for help. Where do you think that came from, at least for you?
Yeah, I do think as a kid, I worked right beside my dad, and my dad was, my hero, and he, taught me every skill he could. But he also taught me that, hey, we're not going to ask anyone to help us with this concrete. You and I are going to do it. That's, wow. It's okay. And so I think when we butt heads, and, he was dumping gasoline on my fire, basically to say, your own father's hoping you fail. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to see you succeed right away, as sad as that sounds. But,
Mm.
we grew a relationship where he wanted to see me succeed at some point. And because I was in the same business he was, right? And then I think it was just, I don't know, whether, people want to see you fail in business. That's just how it is. When you enter a new business and you're a competitor, it's not a very comfortable place, because you
Wait, are
can't.
you saying your dad wanted you to fail initially?
I think, just competing, right? We're competing in the
Competing,
same.
like he wants to be
Yeah,
better than you. I
yeah,
get
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. So I don't, I think deep down he didn't want to see me fail, but he didn't want to see me succeed either. So I don't know
I get
exactly
it.
what that means. But I think it's anybody, when you're, if I go wholesale right next to you in your market, it's not like you're going to call me with every deal, right?
Right.
In the concrete business, and I'm from small town North Dakota. I think, median population around here is 100,000 in my 5 miles, so it's not a huge area. And yeah, I just think that's, I mean, you're not in a comfortable spot when you start a new business. You're competitive, you're competition for somebody. And I think the ego-ness of that, and I didn't come out of that quick enough. I didn't, at the end of the day, I don't know if those businesses wanted me to fail, or, other businesses, but if I were just to go meet and talk to them, it's amazing. It's amazing that what's going on in your head is not really actually happening in reality. So I just didn't ask for help. I was a stubborn, egotistical concrete guy.
Gotcha. And then so what happened? How did your mindset change on that? Because obviously the next step is you did finally find some help.
Yeah, I think that, when I was laying in the hospital at that panic attack, and you got these EKG monitors hooked up to you, and I think that was the time where it's okay. I either need to change something, or, I'm probably going to work myself to death, or something's going to happen, because it's at a 8-year-old male shouldn't be in the hospital with chest pains. And I just had chest pains all the time. That was 2-3 year span of anxiety and,
Right.
and attacks. So I just got super curious after that. That's the one word that I can, that saved my life really, and saved my career, and made me understand, like, hey, maybe I can do real estate. Maybe, hey, I can learn how the business to run for me, basically, you know what I mean? Work for me instead of me just doing everything. And
Yeah.
so That takes margin though. That's the scary part as an entrepreneur. That takes away from your bottom line because you're going to have to hire more management. Things get thinner in business. You make a lot of profit right away because you are doing everything. But then as you start hiring people and getting processes and systems in place and managers to focus on certain areas, it takes margin. You're going to lose,
Right.
you're not going to make as much, and you have to take that as reality as a growing company. But those 3-4 years of squeeze and getting everything figured out, we kept elevating and kept elevating. And then I got super curious about, as I got my time back, I started getting curious about, what are the super wealthy doing? I think, of all people, Grant Cardone came on my phone, and as I got curious about real estate, and he was marked pretty hard in 17, 18, 19. So I kept learning. I kept learning about real estate because of Grant, and that's kind of what shaped my career today as a real estate developer, vertically integrating with the concrete or the construction
So
company.
did you talk to him? Was he your mentor, or were you just watching YouTube videos? Like, this is a very interesting question that I've asked people about mentorship, about when you become a mentor, like
Hmm.
how you choose your mentors.
Yeah.
So Grant Cardone's pretty divisive
Yeah.
figure, to say the least, right?
Yeah.
I think it's more just a branding thing. I don't think I don't know if he's actually that, but it seems a very big branding thing to be a little bit more provocative. But what did you buy his program? Did you just learn from him on YouTube? And then how did that manifest?
Yeah. Yeah. Grant's the definition of controversial, which makes his brand even bigger and brighter and more views, right? So he very well knows
Yeah.
marketing, but he was the only one at that point really pounding the dirt in probably putting a lot of money into, against Dave Ramsey's methods and challenging. He was just educating. He was just giving free value. And I think I followed him probably for a year and a half before I did anything. And then in 2019, I was accepted as their first mentorship group. I think it was early 2019 I did that. And that just put me around a lot of high level people that were doing similar things to him, different businesses as well, and just got me thinking a whole lot differently than I was. Just I was circled around with construction guys that smoke cigarettes and drink beer and weren't teaching me the rule of business and then that's where when I got accepted in his program and got to meet him and see how he works, it's wow. You know what I mean? This guy's just doing marketing, and then he's got this big, he's sending leads to his big company, selling educational online training and real estate education and trying to raise money through his funds. And it was just mind blowing, really, what he was doing in 2019 even. And he's even done a lot since then.
Right.
So I just, yeah, mentorships are so important. It just, yeah. And then I've spent $100,000 plus every year since then,
Right.
just
Gotcha.
with mentorship.
I love it. Which ones are you part of? Is it just grants, or are there other ones?
I'm with Ryan Pineda's group, which is close with
Gotcha.
Pace's group, and they all affiliate themselves pretty closely together now. So, yeah, Ryan's been a big help for me just as I'm growing, and he comes from a different world than I do. He comes from flipping and wholesaling, which was all new to me back when I think it was a year and a half ago when and he just started blowing up over the last year and a half, basically too. So I learned the real estate game a little heavier, and then I also got to learn the social media aspect. Is actually why Ryan is my mentor today.
I love it. So where'd you go? So you had your construction company, but then how did you actually get into what I consider investing? Was it
Yep.
flipping? Did you immediately start doing the value add on the multifamily? Where'd you go?
Yeah. So kind of got a drug into it. Some investors out of Vegas were developing some properties up here in North Dakota and in my hometown in Grand Forks, and they wanted out. They weren't making, I don't know, I think they invested in the oil boom, didn't work out for them, and they needed an out. So I ended up buying this development from them. And, I think I developed about 52 townhomes. We ended up keeping 20 of them as investment properties. And, that was one of our very first miniature syndications. So, and we raised money for. So that's kind of where I learned it all. And I actually took a big chance on an office building about the same time. It happened almost simultaneously, where the office I'm standing in today, I remember it was 1.1 million and I had to write a check, for 250 grand or whatever to get the money down to buy the thing. And it was a lot of money. I don't know if I slept for a few nights after that, but that's what everyone was telling me to do. And I just trusted what they were telling me and learning by failure, hopefully not. And everything penciled well, everything made sense. So I ended up doing that deal and hey, it was one of the best things I ever did. And it's pretty glorious when you get to do a cost segregation as a real estate professional and apply it to your active income and knock out your taxes. So your tax liability goes down, which I understand that real estate is the number one reasons you do it is purely just a tax loan. The passive income's kind of
I
BS. The
100, I
appreciation,
100% agree.
it's
I just totally agree that it's literally almost the only reason you should do it. Not the only reason, but the main reason is with the tax benefits. Everything else is, if you own 10 single families and you're living off the cash flow, you're crazy because
yeah.
in 3 years, tenant's gonna leave, and then you're gonna have to put that all that cash flow back in to get it back to rent ready. That
Yeah.
literally happened to me recently.
Okay.
So, anywho, I'll let you rant about it, but I just needed to chime in because I'm like,
Absolutely.
I
No.
100% agree.
You can talk passive income, you can talk, and we all preach it. And I always preach against the 401k. I just don't think there's so many people that cashed out of their 401ks in COVID that when you apply it to real estate still, I think, is a better return, and in the long run, for sure. Real estate is illiquid, right? That's its biggest drawback. But 90% of people do it probably for the tax benefits alone. And then the other people are investing in it for trying to do cash flow and appreciation and refinances, which is all great when you're doing real estate, but it forces you to invest for the long term, right? 5, 10 years. If you're going to buy and flip a real estate in 1 year, that's a flip. You're just flipping. But if you're in a stock, say, or a 401k, you're still investing for the long time. Of course, you're going to make money over the long run. Everyone does. If you daily cost average into the real estate market, you're going to do better than if you just buy on red
Yeah.
days. Whatever, right? It's wherever you want. But I think that real estate forces you to stay in the deal, get more efficient if, say, your operations is not making cash flow. I think that just because real estate is illiquid makes it a better investment because people need to stay in for the longer term. And I think that's the biggest investment.
So let's talk about it a little bit. Let's talk about, there are two things I want to talk about, but we'll start with this one. Talk a little bit about what a cost segregation is. How do you get the tax benefits from real estate? How does depreciation work in general?
Yeah. So real estate, yeah, I think the cost segregation is really the reason. I don't know. They talked about getting rid of it, but at the end of the day, they basically break down everything within a real estate property. So say you have a 18 unit apartment building, could be worth $1 million. Let's just use easy math. Well, they could say 100,000 of it is the concrete, and then you got plumbing, and you got the lumber, and you got things that will probably go to waste faster than, say, 30 or 40 years. So they'll front load basically the depreciation of it, where they just accelerate the depreciation. That's what a cost segregation study is. It's just like a section 179 on a vehicle. You're just accelerating depreciation in an asset where, basically you lose money every year on paper. That's all you're doing. And, you can straight line any commercial real estate property over 30 or 40 years, depending upon the asset type. Or you can elect to do a cost seg study and front load the depreciation, which almost everyone does because you can, pay zero in taxes. And that's really why you want to invest in real estate, because passive income, we said, is great. The appreciation is great. Leveraging it is great. But the amount of money, the most thing you'll ever pay money on is taxes in life. And with all the rules of real estate, using cost studies, you can pay literally zero in taxes every year if you play the game right, and you have a very good CPA who's tracking all this for you. And I always, you use Donald Trump, and And as an
Yeah.
example, what did that guy do? Well, he's paying $700 a year in taxes. Well, he's just using the rules, and literally the Democrats are ones that literally wrote these rules. So he does use that against them, and he's just, I'm just using the rules that you guys wrote, and they utilize them. Donald Trump utilizes them, has a very good CPA, very good financial team, I'm sure, and the guy's smart. At the end of the day, he's savvy with business. So when you do that right, you don't need to pay a lot of taxes, and because of that, you can create a lot of wealth pretty fast. And
Yeah.
if you keep more money.
100%. And then, so this was something you mentioned. And I'm curious, this is something that I've thought about. You were talking about how one of your missions is to get people away from 401k, start investing in real estate. And this is a very interesting thing to me because I haven't thought about the best way to do this. So I'm curious if you have an answer for this. But you were talking about how the daily cost averaging, right? In the
Yeah.
stock market, how you're taught it is, get your paycheck every single month, put 10% into the stock market and don't think about it for 30, 50 years, whatever, right?
Yep.
I love it. I love it so much. So, what can we plug for you? What can my community do for you? What can we do for you to give you back? Because you were an amazing guest. You did great. So what can my community do for you? Can they send you deals somewhere? Is there something you're trying to promote?
Yeah. You know what? If you go I send out an email every Saturday, and it's called Unfollow the Herd. And it's something, of course, if you want to get into real estate and you don't know how, I give creative finance to all sorts of different ways you can educate yourself to unfollow the herd in your investment strategy, so you can live, hopefully
That's
financially
the
free.
link, right?
Yep, perfect. And
Okay, I'll make sure it's in when we post the podcast, because what we do is
okay,
we'll take this, we do it live, but then we take it down and it'll be posted in the month or something.
okay,
I'll make sure that's in the
yeah,
description.
yeah, perfect. And yeah, you follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. I'm trying to provide as much value. I'm trying to provide my journey and exactly how I'm doing deals. So that email is where you're going to see the first of all that action. And then I have content that backs that up, or they call it social proof, on all the other platforms. So I'm very avid LinkedIn guy too. So I have to write on there.
Love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool, my
Yeah.
man. Well, I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Do you have any last words before I wrap this thing up?
No, man, I appreciate you having me on. This has been a blast, and I appreciate this again.
Love it. Awesome. All right, guys. That is Scorch the Fears. Tomorrow, guys, I am going to be cold calling agents live for 12 hours straight. I've been posting about this all over my social media. I'm gonna get Marc's face on here because that was funny. But I'm going crazy tomorrow. My niche is agent outreach. So I'm gonna be cold calling for 12 hours straight. I'm also gonna show you guys how I got all the deals, how I put it into my system. I'm gonna be doing all that. So I'm gonna be with you guys live streaming all of tomorrow. It's going to be nuts. I'm starting at 9 a.m. MST. It's going to be fun. It's going to be here on YouTube, so don't miss it. It's going to be a really fun time. I'm going to close some deals. You guys will see it live. If you're interested in agent outreach at all, it'll be a good time. So yeah, come through. It's going to be from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. And then I'm going to kill myself at the end of that because I don't think I've ever done that much cold calling in my entire life.
Dude,
in
that's a
one
big day.
single day. Yeah, it'll be a big day. I want to say I'm probably going to take a 30-minute lunch break. I'll be hanging out answering questions, but I need to eat in between that. So don't get mad at me when I say 12 hours, probably going to be 11 and a half. But that's tomorrow, guys, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And then Scorch the Fears next week, Thursday, as always. But really, the live is what I want all of you guys at tomorrow. Anyways, thanks, man. Scorch the Fears with Marc. We're here. We did it. I appreciate all of you guys so much. Let's freaking go.